feel like probably everyone in this room has been listening to Columbia Radio for like days now. So thank you for listening together. As we begin to gather our attention for this evening, my name is Laura Henriksen. I'm the program director here at the Poetry Project, and I am so honored and excited. I've been looking forward to this reading for such a long time. We have Jared Stanley and Saretta Morgan with us this evening. Before we get into tonight's program, I have just a few quick announcements and reminders. There are 2 all-gender restrooms located upstairs, and also 2 more all-gender restrooms here on the first floor through the sanctuary. If you need access to those first floor restrooms, just find me or anybody working tonight, and we can get the door open for you. It's just across the sanctuary. It's a real pleasure to see you this evening. I would love to see you back again at the Poetry Project soon. So I'm going to share with you a few. We have a really abundant May coming up and events before May as well. So we'll be back on Friday when we'll hear from Cody Rose Clevidence and Sahara Kribani. So that's unmissable. Next Wednesday, I'm really excited. We're celebrating the launch of the selected poetry of Jim Brody. So would love to see you back for that. And then on Friday, we have, the following Friday, May 3rd, we have another launch event for She Follows No Progression, a Teresa Hak-Young Cha reader that we're hosting with Wendy's Subway. So a lot of really special stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. There's a calendar in the Poetry Project newsletter, so be sure to get a copy of that. And with those updates, I will now turn it over to John Coletti to introduce Jared Stanley.
Thanks, Laura. Jared of Reno. When I first met Jared Stanley, it was maybe a year or so after someone passed along a review by him of what I felt at the time an unknowably weird book of mine named Mum Halo he wrote for in the Rumpus. Maybe Carl Safran. He seized upon glossolalia, neologisms, citing certain awkward words like wackadoo then, and much later gleek. His reads seemed kindred with those odd, codified descriptions of a cultish childhood, with Northern California drawl, mental health concerns in the country, and far hills of the burnout West. Phrases so apt in their ungainliness, as he called them, then, which made me feel seen, and see him, his mind, hella. Note that much of the rest of this introduction tour roast will collage and misorder his lines, notes, and private confessions to me without any preview or permission. I may go on. Jared's poems have this closed eye quality, the wet eyelids of dirty trees. In a very early chapbook from Song Cave called How the Desert Did Me In, though it was a very dirty windshield and halos could have been shapes of cougars, or rodent investigations behind a bush. That's what my wandering rage was like. Hours senseless, hours raw. Rage and beauty drying out, prayerfulness, the way repetition can make us laugh, then fall apart, then skip church to steal a pair of Puce sunglasses at the yard sale past a gun show by the Strip. Jared's laugh is uncanny. It sees all the goblins. But he and his work are ordered, while attracted to the disordered, the reminders. Or that's the kind of reader I am inside his work. What's an end when listened to and listening among the promise of unheard music, Slingerland, nachos, Guild Starfire? Music goes another way, dirty pint glass, sour gummy bear, unexplored harmonies from his ears, Nightboat books. In a completely different order, they still shine. A split fig look up to the moon's tooth, garbage eddies, decorative gravel under what he was certain were stars, contrails from the weeds in their changing environment. Downwind from dried trees and lost highways threatening to crackle and smoke, Jared abides with the curious humility of childishness and the care of intention. His sympathetic strings resonate stories of souls on their right and wrong days, His daughter writes the best lines. During COVID, I was in a weekly virtual hangout called Confetti Club, where Jared, Allie Warren, Anselm Bergen, and several others would usually read work, rewind, unwind, freak out, freak each other out, whinge, whatever. Not uncommon then, but over those several years, Jared started sending me these octaves that now compromise So Tough. So, Jared, why are you composing a book entirely of 8-line poems? Well, 8 is my favorite number, so when I was getting over the novel, I ended up writing an 8-line poem, and then just kept writing 8-line poems, and then more and more. Then I heard that the octave was a Sicilian precursor to the sonnet, and thought about the octave part of a sonnet, the part before the volta or turn. And I realized you could write octaves that never had the turn, never got completed, so that seemed right for writing at that time. Another cruel ongoingness, as the first poem in So Tough states. And So Tough was also the name of both a Beach Boys record and a Saint Etienne album, and I just loved the sound of it. From an essay of his own describing So Tough's origin and his prosody in it, well, Will sits uncomfortably besides prayerfulness. I know, but there's a lot of information in that gap. The longer you regard an object, the more warped and bizarre it seems, is. A too closeness, a distortion, starts to blur the edges like smoke. Can't say it better than him. Jared Stanley is a poet and writer who often collaborates with visual artists. He's the author of 4 collections of poetry, So Tough, Ears, The Weeds, and Book Made of Forest. I think of demons for you, Jared. We all do. Now tell me 10 things about joy, or try to. Jared of Reno, folks.
Thanks, John. I'm going to try not to perform echolalia at the moment, but thank you. It is so wonderful to be here with so many people who were involved in the creation of this book. I think I probably sent every page of this to John at one point because I was very desperate and afraid of the book, which I still don't really understand. And also my friend Laura is here who helped me figure out the problems in the book. At one point, she was like, "It's really bleak. I think you need like a little oasis moment." So I had to work on that a little bit. And thanks to Laura and the Poetry Project for having me. It's like very wonderful to be back in this space. The last time I was here was for Joan Kiger's memorial. I don't really use lecterns. So I'm going to read from So Tough, and then I'll read a couple of newer bits. As John was saying, this is in octaves, and there's no title, so it will just be it will be a kind of an ongoing reading. So, if you're inclined to meditate in the midst of readings and just kind of concentrate on assonance to the detriment of all other aspects of the reading, that's probably appropriate. The green catch of light your eyeglasses get, basic enthusiasms where the flowering grasses nod in the wind. Another cruel ongoingness. Fell asleep with a cock-shaped bookmark on my eyes. The sea is off somewhere by itself. Previously unimagined inhabitants of spume. Blood in your mouth. Did you taste it? This summer touches my face oddly. The hot gore of its afternoons dries the blood to a powder. It's not so wild. Every age finds an intricate suffering. This one has thirst and particles. Some half-remembered folk melody cries out for jugs of green river wine. Tastes like grass, fucks you up, cold on the tongue. Dear voices fill a room beyond the wall, fill my ear, my cup, so far for us to go, undersea, above ground, feeling for a level surface upon the earth, the timbres, the changes, lovely, in accordance, barely vibrating these bones, little half moons of smoke light in the typewriter keys. Singing close to the ground, light tastes like air, kinda. Touched, felt by other generations, bright nests in nests. My hope it will be air plus music. Touch a dry grass stalk, it's whole. To shoeless feet, they don't seem like great distances. And I fill each line with jewels, blanks, fine straw, the grass tips drooping. A gust slips down past my loose ornamental parenting style. A purple aura from a drop of tangerine juice. Motion and no motion. Enthusiasts of Thursday. It's very Thursday. Everyone's drunk and nobody's thirsty. If there is a future and we get to be wise creatures within it, wearing perhaps a nice tunic, caftan, or sport coat, pushing boats upstream with our thoughts, the capital destroyed, such things we had seen, ash raining down on the city of fun, a gnat swims around in my eye, the children mistake whatever this is for snow. The sand in our teeth tastes bitter, but we get used to it. This voluptuous shirt of air, tousled gusts of fuck, the rhythm of payment, unwinnable style, bite marks on the wind's back, a panoply of distorted fart noises. I get so lazy and wanton, a good time. I confess to the study of clouds, to loving the mysteries, distrusting the wound. A crust of salt upon the slipping rock for your feelings. I'm doing this, trying to test what light tastes like. Lick 2 tears, 1 swarms with intertidal green. Skunks live in the drain by the parking lot. The dream police haunt my standing here. Lungs in Pompeii, lungs in plaster, walking out into the green escapist drizzle. A storm drops cool hails our way. No cleansing tremolo fell like rain today to collect the ash and lay it on the earth. The ground could open at any time. Here you are on the Galata Bridge eating a fish sandwich, your face changing shape in the dusk light off the Golden Horn. Here you are in Reno, your shoulders red tracery where the sun came down to say fuck off. Here you are in Philadelphia, someone I can only imagine in a red hoodie among the spring-like dormancy of the world. Here you are in Berkeley after dancing all night at Lipo Lounge, stumbling back across the bridge, a bit of lipstick on your tooth. Since it's Wednesday, stay loose about the goddamn facts. If you're busy flowering into your circumstance and animals should fall from chiseled letters in a cloud, read the blur and sigh, sip from the stranger's cup, get a good angle on it and suck. It's as easy as feeding your heart to a dog in a heat wave or drawing great half moons in the margins of a sea. The air comes a finger over the miraculous pool. I feel like I have to say when I'm reading on the East Coast, Nevada's exceedingly dusty, and this was mostly written under just endless wildfire smoke. So there's just a lot of smoke and a lot of dust and a lot of wafting aspects to the work. When the tree smoke gets in my lungs, I like to squint at the world. These teeny scuds of clairvoyance kind of haze my inner eye and make a sucking whoosh up the ashen ectoplasmic wildfire's face. It's very floaty up there, this world we just started to think of and burn in an insane amount of heat and ash fall. My daughter wrote this. I'm missing out on so much. They are friends with gorgons and werewolves and, oh, but you already know about the punk rock mermaids. Some life returns at the approach of a stranger in the moving, furtive disappearance the years are made of. My hands do all this weird shit. Looking for a changed shape of air, elusive agitations and sympathies, they cup your shoeless foot. So alone, so tough. So weird at home, so weird in public. On the street, a whiff of body spray blows in off a stranger's shoulder. The look is human, nameless to nameless, the texture of a luxuriant shoe. If I keep my droplets to myself, maybe Wednesday will be a consolation. Take courage or towering succor. These exquisite lights pattern the walls in ruinous blue. Finger trace a disappeared change in the spinning air. Lost at heart, it's wonderful. Whose lazy sigh brushes my ear. Palms down the canyon, graffiti a jewel-toned kerchief. Dried up bits of the Imperium set within the marvelous quail beeps. Fronds bend. I can tell from your eyes at a distance of miles, you feel a bit convinced. Can a ruin approach the status of music, sound like a feeling from this far, echo in this garden? How many times can you write about ash in the undersmoke? The indicator light on the air purifier is red. To begin in ignorance with the spirit of trust, and to end getting high on burning trees. I open the book and feel fear, and fear people maybe seeing my fear, and see people feeling my fear. Your body doesn't stop being your body when you choose to be in a dark room for several days. I feel the ink with my hand. I'm ruining the book. You can hear me. Off in the bushes with the unseen, dropping rocks through a spider's web, rustling with some tough giggles. Whichever pain blots out curiosity, my wind-sucked vulture will pluck it out. The oblivious hand is comfortable in thorns, an oblivious hand in a tangle, too physical for any Monday in this century. This is like a desert reading. So this is like the desert moment right here. It goes, soft liquid, rich cream, refreshing gel. Here, another book of suffering. This is for you, folded into an airplane and sent down, up, thrashing in a thrashing wind. The earth makes a sound, a waggling tongue under the sod, cream-colored, soft, milled, and bendable like this one. The light is getting pretty orange up here, lolling around in the tops of the firs, and I shiver all through my carbon. The moralizing pierce of the sun on the tip of my house. The look on the face of my hero's daughter. Your peace on the edge of my nostril. A clear substance oozed from the bump. Goo with eyeballs going on about Ram Dass. An ill wind glitter fucked with starlings. An oldness to this stretch of day. Everybody but blank knows what I mean. Hide from the sun in balsam root time. The light, in its cunning, wants this skin to pass over the blade clean into me, the dark sky sanctuary in Black Widow time. In a meditative fear, a big pictureless dollar bill enjoys looking serene, is covered in barf. Look at it resting on a bed of deplatformed biomass. What to do with such cruel peace, gentle thing, reader? Test the stillness. A picture of the opposite world. We'll have to get there on foot. Light slashed ridges form a scorpion's tip. I'm just going to read a few more. I wanted to read this poem from my last book, which is called Ears. Tune for drum and wind. You're a wandering blare, a weird sounding hunger called fire, living it. Another in a series of public breaths flutter my pant leg like coyote teeth. I'm just not sure. Should we be decorous and let the wind beat a drum beyond our life and ability to do so? It could be all right on its own if we leave the drum out in all the click-clack weather, the fronds and licks of fluent heat, the wind's vivid skin ingratiations talking directly into the tympanum. We could just throw the drum at the weather, accompany it with the air we stashed in the snares, so it touches our liberty, our radiant, quintessential vase made from booklight and unscrewed from practical terms. Fragments of the Space Shuttle Columbia fell here, full of toiletries, your money, and a false grail called survival. After that, somebody else came, new to us, blurting a tattered note in rhythms we used to disappear one into the other. I was thinking of what I was going to read with Saretta, whose work I admire so much, and so I've picked a couple of newer bits that I think might kind of have resonances or rhymes. This is just two more. This is called Appetite and Simple Forgetting. They were the last generation, and yet we were born. Mud covered the laces of a survivalist boot. A swan put its head in a drain pipe. This wind cracked our lips, and like the children we were, we kept on licking. It's probably simpler now that wind does things for us. Now we have all this time. The people who brought us here, what they said about the sunlight hitting the trees and the eclipse light they cupped in their hands through the leaves, it all sounded sincere, but what could it mean? We are alive. We make up games, gossip in the scrub and cheat grass. The thorns nick our calves, it's fine. They mock our songs, and it's easy to ignore the way air whistles over their teeth. I mean, nobody cares. They cry out about our dirty cuffs, complain of how fragile the dusk seems, even on Wednesday, which is Wednesday, and will keep being Wednesday, and is dusk, and will not be too easy to smear or haul away, because it is not paint, it's not debris. We made some life in their heaps, fragments of a guitar tune. They never stopped talking, things we couldn't believe, swans and crystal, hymnals, how many kinds of cheese there was, astonished, kind of dead, flies in a billow of ash. Then suddenly we were no longer the stories they told themselves. And this is my last one. Sanctuary stairs. I gather her head up in my sweater, and we crouch here. Some dried ketchup where her lip turns down, a light crust of dirt on one eyebrow, the concrete stained and worn. Surprise rain splattered in the gap between here and the parking lot. Our socks are wet. Our feet itch. Then her cough started. It's going to be okay. We can hide her for a minute. Her damp head soaks the wool. The corners reek of urine. We do a sober trick. My body now a cradle. Her hair touches my wrist. She trembles down to her cavity. A cough we love. The careless future emerges from it, shaking like a star bracelet with elastic in this other country. The contradictory music of our tears. What do wandering souls find to live in here? What warm skin in this stairwell? The air is cold. The earth moves. One bug survives beyond their law. 3 of us hunched up like heaps of wet wool in the leaky crook of a stair. You heard about us somewhere. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jared. That was, I feel so deeply, or I see so clearly the orange light that emanates from these poems. I loved that. I love this book. We have copies for sale, so be sure before you leave tonight to pick one up. And I'm really so glad now to get to turn it over to Benjamin Krusling to introduce Saretta Morgan.
Wow. I was really excited to do this, but I had this sort of drama of length last night. Like, should it be 2 pages to indicate sort of the intensity of my feeling, or, keep it concise and pave the way for you? So, like, I hope this is somewhere concise and in between. So I'd like to say to people that Saretta was my first poet friend. Though time and experience have sort of, what I wrote was aerosolized my memory, which I hope makes sense. And people are poets in all kinds of ways, so I was like, I've met poets before, but it feels spiritually true to me and emotionally important regardless. I met Saretta at a Cave Canem workshop. I had just graduated and was just beginning to kind of think of what poetry I wanted to write, and trying to lift the sort of traditions that I was sort of under at the time. They were kind of weighing on me like a sad dream or something on my brain, and Saretta struck me then with a kind of coolness. And I was trying to figure out if that was the right word, like not coolness, like iciness or cruelty or something, but a kind of self-possession, kind of attention given and paid. But I prefer given, I think. And this is also the kinds of conversations I would have with Saretta at that time. I'd choose a word, and she'd suggest a different word, and I'd be like, oh, fuck. And that's what I thought at the time. I thought, here's someone who knows something about what's going on. And that's why I quoted her in my first book a few times. I've always thought that Saretta had a way with words, and her book, in its tender intensity, is cool too, in the way I was saying. It renders love carefully with syntactic exactitude. I had an image in mind of a kind of breathful mastery, or marble shaped without the trace of fingers. Something like the opposite of that, something kind of alive, even though it's crafted. Alt nature, the title, is cool, like a new genre of music and being. My students liked it as well. The poem's unminced disdain for borders, in the words of Borders' various police, is cool. Cool also like meditation, like veil lifting. Cool, like Saretta writes, the slow and complete life of water. sensual and intense like a horse, and the, quote, viral smells and the cuts up her thighs, and funny too, like the things we do with dogs. I don't quote the book now to make it do the work of presenting itself, but to conjure what I think of as the velvet spike of its intelligence. Water falling is the sensual conflict of a heart split open. The thing I wanted to zoom in most on, though, is borders between Black life and the anti-Black missiles of naturalization, between desire and capacity, between fucking and not fucking, or between making and not making love, I would rather say, because I clutch pearls. Between land and thought, between a world of lost bodies, in the desert and the percolating heat of care and intent, slowly forging another world alongside and under that one. In this book and in Saretta's work, the sea of experience is parted, and Uncle Sam EU geography is created for us. Or rather, we are able to envision it. And so what gets opened are channels of life through the machinery of death, this kind of alt nature, alt geography. These poems, too, are so located, and I worried when I was trying to close read them that I was sounding like international art English a little. But this is the thing that kind of grips me when I read, and I don't know another way to say it, I suppose, but I see the earth in them, which is a comfort, particularly right now when it feels like all that's solid and matters, Black and Indigenous life worlds, Palestinian life worlds, water principles. These things can sometimes feel like they're all in the process of turning to air, and the particular texture of ground that I find not only in Saretta as a person, but in Saretta's work, is what I kind of want to set the stage for. And I'm really excited to do that. So please join me in welcoming Saretta.
Hi. Oh, hi, Omar. Hi, Sarah. I want to first express kind of gratitude for everyone who's not here right now because they're holding it down at encampments and protests and planning all the actions we need around the city right now. It's a really strange time to celebrate a book, and I thank you deeply for being here to celebrate with me and with Jared. It means a lot. And thank you, Jared, for that reading. It's really, so I've been on book tour for the past couple months and just traveling around and reading in rooms with people who I don't know, so it's really lovely to be here with so many people who I love, and in this place that's been, around since the beginning of my poetry writing days. I mean, it's been around longer than that, but for me, it's been around from the beginning of my poetry days. You understand. I'm going to say a couple things. One is that 50% of the royalties for alt nature go to No More Death Phoenix, which is a humanitarian aid organization that I worked with throughout the time of writing it. And if you are interested in contributing to that work and not buying the book, I do have their donation information here. I'll put it in a card by the books. And I also brought a brand new broadside as a gift to anyone who places a donation tonight. The book opens with an epigraph, which is, there was something else I wanted to make a note about it, and I can't remember it right now, but if I remember later, I'll say. I want to wake every morning into love, where love is the question of how I'm going to help you get free, where that means whatever it needs to mean. And then beneath that, there's a second epigraph that's only in my book that I wrote for myself. It's taken from Notes on Craft, Writing in the Hour of Genocide by the Palestinian-American writer Fargo Nissim Tavaki. The essay opens with a question, which is, what does Palestine require of us as writers writing in English from within the imperial core in this moment of genocide? Question mark. So I guess now I'm reopening the desert moment that Jarrett had before, and it's going to continue until I'm done. First, we had very good reason to believe that the authorities were lying, were not omnipresent, which meant the authorities would at some moment arrive. The thing we knew. To see clearly and to think clearly, that is, dangerously, and to answer clearly the innocent first question. And still, we carried concealed on the highways. We hushed the horses' mouths. We put our heads to the horses' mouths so we wouldn't be lonely. This next poem that I'm going to read is a poem that I wrote over the course of 5 years as a relationship was happening and ending, and by the time the book came around, it's really became a poem about me thinking about things that made love difficult to practice in that place and with that person. Dearthlight. Now, incoming between one desert and another, I recognize the edges parting and clear. I dip my hand into the bath over your hair. I ask you not to shave. I ask, open the error, and skin blades open the river, and your great eye opens over a ruined field. From here, geography extends a labored pulse. More music, palmed casings. This love story, a horse still drunk from war, where I am the incredible absence of her jaw. A soft pink gaining. You say dearth is no name for a horse. Here, how she rises from every pussing wound. The officers gouge Jasper eyes from the mud. I love you. Dearth, irrational, makes empty the valley. From elongated shadows, pulp of her desire. When this happens, we must love ourselves fiercely, the ancestors and lost humans declared. The human who was wearing the hat of a particular sports team, the human who dropped their hair comb, the human who thought she would reach Utah by Tuesday. Only deserts witness the slow and complete life of water. A story of chassis and foraged box springs. The one sound offered wandering night without horizon, each exceeds its genre while remaining truly intact. This epic has no hero but flesh, which defies imagination. The carry-on large bird's fear, ambulant and calling your name. Foregrounding and comments for what hinges beyond a thorough wound. Likely to suffer, my gift stumbles graft with sores. Bring me the officer's music. Bring me the landscape gouged from your eyes. Low basin flora, verdant, inching vertebral ache, a warm anatomy to feel threatened, endangered by, thick-muscled and in danger of, iridescent over. And in the tissue between floodplains and the officer's science, and the quiet between and want for shade, the hooded eyes and fluid body, gentle body for whom I lie down. Tonight, I walk the dog, committing to memory the darkened color and shape of each car to pass. So it must have been for the first stars to harvest light from what they followed. I've placed a shotgun on layaway, a service I haven't used since I was 12, having unlearned to be ashamed of needing time or not knowing how to use it, knowing the distinction harbored in the officer's heart, perceiving it through its disciplinary veils. The horse stamps out from waxy brush, viral smell in the cuts up her thighs. Tell me, baby duck, your wrecked, unsleeping door. Love, if you are where I am, even your smallest of errors, your most wrecked door. The rock faces are opened. The genres are all up for aerial eradication. To the 40-year-old fish, to the abundant bufflehead and ring-necked ducks drifting south across the sunset, I love you. The next poem that I'm going to start, it happens in 5 sections over the course of the book, so I'll start it here, and then I'll read some other things, and then come back to it, and etc. It begins with an epigraph from the writer Cristina Rivera Garza, which is, "In the beginning there was the we being the most intimate and also the most political form of accessing one's subjectivity." And that's from her book, Grieving. Consequences upon arrival. The sharp calls advancing across the valley were no longer for us, or they would be again, but not yet, stretching yards and deserts in their wait. Though we could name the places and their capitals, we could put a needle through every orifice, long and small. Water falling is the sensual conflict of a heart split open. We felt for every boundary, adjacent to which neighboring vertebrates fed themselves. A simple degree toward the wrong coordinate and the moment could change completely, and the change would be thoroughly complete, would ring through the bones of our appearance, a thoroughly surrounding contraindicative pulse. The voices advancing, in some instances observing our fear, accelerated the physical expression of ours, publicly, in suggestive, incongruent thrusts. We slept through the engine braking. The conflicting night milk intrusions woke morning after morning to swarms of fruit-sucking bees, they too on their way downriver to welcome the morning in a good way. Tender ensembles to articulate the water's edge. We woke to the doorframe at the edge of dunes, which we'd always believed was a metaphor, but there, ajar along the sagged sand fencing. We said this with care, though the sagging was one of hostility. We said, someone should fix that. Little passed through the frame, the pussing stitches, the counter stitches, the stitched rosettes, tenderness surrounding their appearance, tenderness indicating an introduction, a growing necessity to debride. We followed our intentions, swaying, soft with desire on the tails of the processions whose shoulders did not rise above the brush. Our intentions pleaded in such a way that our intentions could neither be challenged nor brought entirely to light, their tenderness veiled by the inversion of light. Doubt, our precise and technical transformation. Of all the things we didn't know, the most efficient way to release a dog's bite is to, we never would have guessed, put a finger in its ass, which demonstrates clearly the importance of context with regard to appropriate behavior. Context was what we waited for. These conflicts in passing accumulated in the moment for which we prepared. Though when it arrived, we were wet. We were wide-eyed and well-read, waiting. Readiness, we realized, was never the appropriate goal. Consequences upon arrival. We woke into the morning undressed, every thought washed of color and their chains rusted over. Wind howled and fell and whispered beneath the brush, and we with it, bottoming on purpose. But that was not our gift. Without softness, without thesis, it was difficult to understand the reach of our behavior or to whom we owed the honor. Our only meaningful thought flooded crevices of pain, pain that was simple, fundamental as the air before rain. The circumstances formed around our suffering decayed from the point of initiation inward. This, so abandonment became common. We trained our ears to wake and comprehend the hour, deliver oxygen, rest one foot in its light. We rose our heads only to say, fuck learnedness, behavior that could only exist in the mouth acquired by failure. Articulate and reform the needle drawn up into the roof of its suffering. We weren't going back, not one night, we said, to that disease-shaded landscape, that pus in sheep's clothing, though desire was tied to its awning. Context required no record, met us squarely in our eyes, the eye that awned, the loud, immeasurable eye, the eye hugging the feet of our failure required a trust that could only be offered between streams, or given in the rivers that fed themselves. We woke with dreams pulled through a fine, intelligent point. This thorn was a fundamental characteristic of our sides. History was outlined in our ruin of stitches, rescaled specifically as though we weren't there. Language returned through the appearance of clouds, furtive, deeply shadowed, and offering nothing. We stood adjacent, looked up, and rubbed our arms. While not offensive, it's inappropriate to remain in the procession and offer nothing, not shade, no rosettes, no part in restoring the fence, neither the most obvious, rain. We should start a committee, someone said. The Committee to Combat Language That Does Not Offer Rain, of which the goals and bylaws would be as erotic as they were without a single tooth. We woke to vandalism relative to the committee. Some ones, it seemed, were, in their quiet nighttime way, against what they interpreted as the public shaming of non-productive existence. For the first time in memory, accountability was on the table. It was bulbous and moist. It absorbed all of the blame, which was not at all called for. It said, I have introduced ideological context. I ruined the stitches. I don't feel seen. I'm absorbed by failure. I drink from the river and feel nothing. My gaze depletes. It is me to whom you owe great honor. I told myself I wasn't going to talk in between poems tonight, that I was just going to read through, but it doesn't hurt anything. This is a poem that I wrote kind of reflecting on my childhood and young life growing up on and around military installations. If skin passes always through language, texture is compelled by desire. If one scar rots the length of an afternoon, then morning opens our chest to another science, delicately scaled, veined in silence. I rest my head on the frame of a burning question, and the future bends down from its fine-grained neck, breathing. The dominant orientation is based in devotion. The geography, devoted, disfigures each wrist. Veins negotiate a well-marbled music of territory. Militant roots open to the half-drawn beauty of corridors where the governing image branches with light. Devastating. Light passes through a moment which doesn't mean the moment ends. The moment continues with clarity. We therefore will call our transformations darkness, the proposals for which being precise and drawn toward the heart. I release a trigger and rounds emerge, pale wounds from the berm. Even this sound our valley impresses. Even the futures of thorned perennials bend. Always underneath it, I want language for what the government did to my body. The officers watched lengths of our street. Our legs were barely covered, our streets closed and opened to frame the process of intimate regard. Arousing, delicately lobed, bare repulsion blossoming anything you might ask for. We studied the houses from their ugly, numbered orifices, the same in Panama, Kentucky, as no contractor ever had another idea. Hypothetically, I raised my hand. A bruise withdrawn from the door jammed with heat of a particular style forced open. Devastating, the hanging weight. Concerts of landlessness rehearsed in lesioned blooms, their fruit never fully introduced. Listen to the territory open the bright, hot door. Daily we waited at the barricaded roads, the tinted glass of half-drawn windows having always to be reminded, if you don't stop smiling, I swear. We watched for the forms through which understanding passed, proxy to the conditions from which it emerged, drawing intelligence. Such a simple thing. Every story holds a collective body, amorously or otherwise. The name lost arrives under the knees of an idea. No, we're going to do it this way. We're going to fill our lungs up with the darkest juice. Walking to the corner store on behalf of so-and-so, drenched in possibility, we shaded our curious faces. The increasing aftermath of repulsion is arrival, is a third-party contract, and every nigga left holding the bag. One impression restrained, another will assume the terminal point. When we reference this hour, it holds no reward, nor does it face away. The fibrous connective tissue mounts. Our eyes nearly covered, our legs cold, we woke with the straightforwardness of being Black, regardless of what happened after. the order's warm, retching fever of, it is how scale emerges. If a sentence passes always through landscape, and that landscape is not vacant, texture by this sentence forms a discursive core. Psychologically, physiologically, this scar along my thigh, and from being broken, a science, this murderous clarity we cannot withstand. Listen how the officers have paused for the territory to arrive. The darker the berry, the longer there is to wait. Consequences upon arrival. We will ask you to welcome what arrives. We embrace it ourselves, having never seen its raw or rotund form. Acceptance is an orientation, mapped along the consciousness that rises in our sleep toward the faceless choice that does not return us here. The old conflicts emerge through the feet of the new conflicts, marks across our bodies branched, all the ways there are to stand in one place, on a mountain, at the bus stop, offering a single ragged fruit. A visceral redding eye, context arrived without horizon, lowered by an octave, shot through with feeling and mourning from every hole. A reservoir to one side, the context arrived with an animal in its mouth. It further proposed the geography. To foil the context was to outrun the authorities' imagination, and to refuse all explanations of why what we felt was not real. To disarm the wolf every time at every gate, unthread its learnedness and don the lonely pelt. Scale intimacy like a door, the ambient condition clawing along the rails. The same bird never appeared twice. Figures disappeared beneath terms and stones under which, overturned, there was always a little scat. It wasn't not beautiful. But the climates might surrender us, saying only, I'm sorry for the way I am. There were the climates from which we were evacuated, the climates for which authorities could give two fucks, in which we could not walk to the store, the dawning climate that was not a horizon but virus steeped inside our bones, the circulatory climates where we were perpetually inappropriately dressed. Contextual differences didn't occur within the interior. There were no climates within the climates. They occasioned equivalent decay. This too wished for a name. Dilation to demonstrate the needle's fine circuitous route, to give respect where respect was due. We produced gestures to anchor its teeth to our tables, direct its ankles to the comfort of our love. Faceless and ragged, the conditions behaved strangely, we like to say, though in fact it was duplicitously. The conditions behaved duplicitously, but required all our love. We clenched our fists, yet said, have the champagne. We are figuratively accountable. Here, let us run to the store, have leather, eames, and designer floors, designer flowers. The gun cabinet is designed accordingly, lovingly custom to order. Here, allow us to regard the hour. I never read this poem because shortly after I think like the galleys were printed, I had a falling out with like the person who I guess we were just working alongside each other and this poem came about. But I think one step toward maybe restoring that relationship is just reading the poem. A horizontal appearance. The problem we wanted to address emerged primarily from our situation. The future appeared, governed yet conscious of pleasure within our view. Definition bore a flesh rivers widened through the valley. Each time it rose or ripened, we were the detritus and chose to aggregate or uncouple. If it were impossible to move beyond the point of death, there wouldn't be death, but language picked from our bone sockets. All this mapped through a story of desire, miles and seed to flood a cry or unknown color, the bright horned length of our bodies, which were not seen through language, but sweat between our breasts, a narrative ecology, lonely and expressive with nowhere to go. Having digested all the necessary scholarship, advanced perfect analysis of trauma from inch after inch of receding splendor, We crouch just beyond legible feeling, to undo gently, a little soft-headed something to at the end of the day unfold from. And though in most scenarios the territory did not break, our necks rotated to absorb the alienable score. No matter how weaponized the terrain, the music from wash to shaded wash, where the quiet of feral animals fell against our backs, our vertebrae unclasped with need to tell us something. From a very deep place, the cries were a color unfading. Through the splendor, our mouths were last to disappear. I'm going to read 3 more poems. Dominant orientation lights a corridor wide as Mexico's northern border. Upon return, everything left was unopened, consumed by humans, destroyed by humans, or animalized. One hopes the bees hiving, dying in foul-smelling clumps are not Africanized. The increasing aftermath of invasion, the wounds amber overtaken, near lovely in the morning. The first recorded dead remained unidentifiable to the officers, lost to exposure. What to do with a Negro in the desert, or all of them after, in dry orchards out of season, among cotton, saguaro picked by wrens. Exposure precedes the realization of an identity or fact, state of being exposed to contact with something else, even when making very little noise. The soldiers, pissing behind creosote or elegant on their horses lined to enter the corral, entering each morning before the mountain silhouettes, a cold hand to unlace the erroneous and unfortunately pussing stitch, the hand incorporated along emotional fields of decay. The chain choya fruit then fall. Soil in Sonora softens according to the rain, offering every explanation in full, without saying shit, without gentleness or stepping back from the officer's science, or from how white supremacist they really are. At the center of the explanation sits a small box, and to this box the beetle larvae arrive to feed. Among legal understandings of natural life in the United States is the sentence, as in for the length of one's natural life. There, standing, the distance of their body to a door cracked alone in the desert, irrefutable music. The sentence of natural life, unlike the sentence of life, doesn't allow for the possibility of parole, which was anyway discontinued in Arizona in 1993, when the possibility of parole was replaced with that of release, a process that remains judicially vague. Among peoples in the United States, indigenous peoples are incarcerated at the highest rates per capita. Among blacks, the carceral industry, regardless the branching of orchards and centuries of trees, finds its critical mass. Every sentence harbors a unique end. That is its gift. Night opens a jagged scar. Soft purple signals the end of night in southern Arizona. Tree frogs retreat in the depths of winter. Their bodies appear lifeless, as do certain moths that avoid internal freezing by purging their guts. After the last music, a man, then unidentified, found fully flushed, condition code 1, from which water flows north, probable electrocution located in a database of migrant deaths. His coordinates crossed by desert jaguars reliant on streams. His coordinates are passed through the beetle's gentle bowels, and those of the Belzvereo, identified by a 2-part structure, his definitive response and water down his slender grayed breast. Beneath the cottonwood's gold-filtered crown, where the lowland leopard frog remains moist, the large cat's paw print remains fresh in the soil. After the last music, Tubman and Whitney hike Brown Canyon. They spot a rare beardless tyrannulet. Did she appear from nowhere, hugging parched northern boundaries of her species range? A Mexican jaguar treads backward to observe her melancholic refrain. It's without their interest that the Department of Interior studies effects of stress and fire on vegetation via high-rise, high-res satellite phenomics. No two droughts are alike. The earliest Negro recorded dead in Arizona was unidentified, having not survived probable hypothermia, exposure, blunt force. Force accumulates behind the skull to bear centuries of afterlife and pulp, the afterlife of being chatteled, of being made a glorified mercenary or buffoon, hanging naked in the moon's light where there is no substitute for the adjunct feeling, coerced into foul-smelling clumps. Let's say the force requires a hand or an industry at whatever temperature, more land. Let's say some records are not good, or the pulp is blooming, and the hands they return not destroyed exactly, but smelling lonely and of death. The revolution will not be televised, yet she turns from the horizon and is waving hello. What rises first in the wilderness internal to love? Coming upon a cop vehicle on fire, the question is where to linger, when to return my eyes. In light of the most beautiful horizon, sleeping with heat by your side, position everything always the same way. The Glock, the cock, the pillow spray in well-spaced formation, always the same order. The key is to continue with clarity. I stay ready, so I don't never got to get ready, an old friend would say. But he was talking about film, visual aesthetics. Here, the bewildered underlying. Every light on but all the rooms. I don't never keep. I don't never quickly. I say, what is it that arrives in you? Progressive muscle relaxation, then I adjust. Another worn penny for the sex that doesn't come. Another mountainside of desert poppies. Scorched slope of the future that won't return and is indiscernible from the center of my hand. When I get out of bed, the air conditioner still isn't working. And Mingus on vinyl, and I demonstrating how to best scramble soft eggs. Consequences upon arrival. Refuge is born in the decision to not die, and to not fight either in that fatal schema anymore. We arrived at a breathless edge, an unfortunate relationship to the world. Gnarling roots evacuated of verbal expression, survival void of expression that was yet impolite. The explanations were acceptable, and the desert unstoppably green, still old feelings raised their eyes from the dirt. From the ongoing question, which brushed our arms in velveteen breaths, rose the pain of knowing that our hope remained intact. Given a language to love us, balanced between a basic set of possibilities and our choice at any moment to take a back way home. Each said, that I have been so secluded, I held defeat as my own, is the culminating authorial point. Unnamed in occasions of inconsistent bruising, internally consequential terror, consequences never not in season or at our fingertips, on tap, unoccupied, romantically unengaged. Sleepless against the wet earth, a lush-eyed animal looking forward with ragged breasts. What happened after that? Memories terminated before our private shelter of consciousness. Flush sound over hoof over hand, marble in the gray-pink sky, an impression that carried no heat, though its promise was physical. To be perfectly happy and not strangers to ourselves. Its promise that it would find its way back somehow. We gathered around simulations of the future, oily skin pulling away from the skull, a tenderness looking back through crepuscular hours. Is this the place? The simulation of eating a meal together, with tears in our eyes, carrying on. Come now. The question rises in everyone. From the base of the neck, the world opens. Failed. Receptive, just like that. The territories we've left behind are all gone now. The rain falls through them, refracting light. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saretta. Those poems in this book, it really just amazes me. I feel so caught in its clarity. I'm really so excited. We have copies for sale of both of the books that you heard from tonight, so be sure before you go to get those books to support No More Deaths, who do such important work. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Saretta. Thank you, John. Thank you, Benjamin. Those were extremely beautiful introductions. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you. Good night.